Joseph is one of my favorite Bible characters, and throughout his journey, no matter what happened to him, no matter where he ended up, he always had a heart that was turned towards God. He had the right heart attitude. And Joseph had a lot of reasons actually to be bitter and maybe even carry resentment in his life. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers. He was then sold into Egypt, into a house of a high-ranking official, but was eventually thrown into prison for a crime he never committed. He was actually then abandoned in prison by a friend he had made who got out, and he said, "Remember me when you get out." His friend totally forgot about him, and he was there for another 2 years. Now, to me, that's a lot of reason to be disappointed and disillusioned in God and to lose my trust and be bitter towards other people. But Joseph kept the right heart attitude through it all. Joseph had a heart that could see the big picture. And when he finally met his brothers again in the end of his story, he says this in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people." While others of us would have maybe wallowed in the disappointment and the heartache and the hurts that Joseph had encountered in his life, he was able to see the big picture plans of God. He was able to look at his whole story, at the scope of all the things that had happened to him, and say, I can see that God was at work. And even though things might not look great now in your life, even though you may feel like God isn't working or moving in your life right now, sometimes we need to be able to step back and see the big picture and see how God is being revealed in your story. God has big plans for you, and his plans are always going to prevail, and we can always see how he's working. So the question that I have for you today is that even though the enemy may want to take you out, and even though other people might stand in your way, do you trust the all things plan of God? Do you trust that in all of the things that are happening in your life, God is still at work? He can turn any situation around for your good and his glory. Anything. Nothing is outside of his reach. I've seen that in my own life, and I believe it for you too.